everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast, the best time of your week. My name is Mike Redmond, and I am alongside my co-host, Darren Redmond. And as you know, the two of us are diehard, long-suffering New York Met fans. Today, we have allowed an Atlanta Braves guest to be on the show. Her name is Cass, and you can find her in a couple different places, and we'll kind of get to that in just a minute. But before we do that, Darren, you have a few words for our listeners.
Attention Palm Bay, attention America. Got tax problems? Nashville Tax Solutions has got you covered. Whether you're behind on your returns, you're facing a lien, or just need some expert advice, the team at Nashville Tax Solutions is ready to help. Here's what some of the clients have to say. Chris Bennett, the man who put this all together, and his team saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, and they're compassionate. And they realize that all tax problems are unique and different and need that sort of expert care. So don't let taxes stress you out. Reach out to Nashville Tax Solutions today. Call 615-502-2250, visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com, or email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Nashville Tax Solutions, where resolution is achieved.
Thank you, Darren. And yes, again, as always, just that shout out to Chris Bennett and the team there at Nashville Tax Solutions. Outstanding group of folks. And after you listen to this podcast, not right now would be the time to reach out to them, or first thing tomorrow morning. But again, just wanted to say thank you. So from now, I'd like to welcome our guest. Her name is Cass McMahon, and she is on X. You can find her at CassMac, MAC_21, or on YouTube channel. It's Braves Anatomy, it's called, on YouTube. Love that handle on YouTube. Cass, thank you for being with us today. Maybe you could just kind of introduce yourself and a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thanks so much for having me. I am a social media content creator for basically all my favorite teams, but mainly focus on the Atlanta Braves. I do daily game recaps. Haven't missed a game in 5 years since I've started this venture. I love video games. I love TV. I played baseball myself for 5 years. So, and I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. So I'm the youngest of 6, and sports is the fabric of our family. So I just kind of continued the tradition.
Okay. Well, love to hear that. And so, let's just dive into there. So one thing, as being a sports fan, you have your highs and your lows. A little bit different for Braves fans. You don't really have the lows as much as we do as Met fans. You might have an occasional 3-game skid here and there, but for the most part, you're always there. But I got to ask, on those tough times, whether it's a hard playoff series loss, or maybe it's just, getting swept by a team they have no business getting swept by, or whatever the case may be, what is your go-to move? Some people just shut it off. I've heard of people putting cartoons on. Do you stay with it no matter how bad it can get?
I stay with it, but I do have the back button on the TV. If it's a really bad game, and I just I make sure there's another sport on my back channel so I can go back and forth. And if it's really bad, I'll walk away, but I'll still follow it on my phone. But okay. Typically, in the worst of recaps, which I've done a lot of in May, it'll be short, sweet. I'm not getting into it. You know how bad it was. Just kind of not making a big deal out of it, but just I'm really mad while watching it. But you don't see that on my recaps. Although some of my key moves has been wearing a brown paper bag. That one got some good flavor. I've started using creative glasses, like no glasses, or rain tears glasses, just having fun with it. I mean, it's a long season. You can't take too much out of one game, even though you may be really mad in the moment.
You know, I mean, full disclosure, Mike, as you know, both Cass and I are media casters for the PSF app, and that's where I got to know her talent and what she brings to the table, which is excellent. Um, but you know, you've been doing this for a while, but as we both know, Mike knows, it's not easy. Not only to come up with content, but you don't want to look like you're being different just to be different. You don't want to be like everybody else. So how long did it take you? And this is actually for both of you. And Cass, you go first, if you don't mind. When did you find your true voice, who you are?
Honestly, I don't know if I've completely found it. Um, I'm very, very confident in what I do now. And I don't pay attention to, I mean, you want as many views as possible, but like if something you think is amazing, but then it falls flat, then you just kind of move on. So I think I'm very confident in what I do, but I don't know that because I'm confident in my skin. I'm confident in
Love that.
my knowledge of the game, but I don't know if you always find your voice. I know this is it. This is what I want to do, but I think you're always evolving.
That's great. How about you, Mike? Because, you know, I mean, you came in this thing, you know, late, you know, relatively late. And I tell you, as long as you and I have been working together, you're excelling. You're like a natural. But I know that is almost a diminishing thing because people think, God, he just makes it look. It's not easy. You do a lot of prep.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be a lot of prep because we 100% honor any guest that comes on. We want to make it look, make it known that we know to an extent what we're talking about, not to the extent that they do, because they're typically the one in that particular area that they cover. But I want to make sure we do a service to them, that we do our homework, so to speak. So for me, it's really, as far as finding my voice, I think each week you critique one thing you could do better, and then you find one win. I think finding the wins, no matter how small they are, is what it's about. You have to find some sort of win. And then not so much a loss, just something to kind of just tweak the next time. And so for me, it's finding my voice is really just about like not thinking about it too much, because if I think about something too much, it may come off not less organic than I just spit it out, And so talking about, especially with the Atlanta Braves, I mean, there's just so much to talk about, so much we're going to unpack here today. It's just gonna, prep or no prep though, but it's one of those teams that, gosh, I mean, you could have episodes just talking about them. Like for me, the one thing that I find most humorous is it feels like they passed the baton of Met killers. Like we all know who it started with, back with Chipper Jones, probably even before that, but it just seems like every couple years they pass that baton to the next one, and it's the guy that you can't get out no matter what you do. He's just constantly getting on base. So who would you say right now, Cass, is from what you've seen on the Braves Mets series, who's that guy now that's that Met killer that just Mets don't want to pitch to him?
I'm not saying this year specifically because our entire lineup has struggled for the most part in May, so I don't know if this counts. But Austin Riley,
Good call.
for a good portion of his early career has done damage to the Mets, and I think everybody's had a big hit against the Mets. Sorry guys, but
True. It's like hitting off a batting tee.
I think Travis d'Arnaud has had some big hits as well. I mean, I think you can go up and down the line, but Austin Riley and Travis d'Arnaud are the two that come to mind.
Let's unpack that a little bit, if I may. Travis d'Arnaud. I always thought he was a good player, and I thought the Mets got rid of him a little too soon, but he was injury plagued, and that seems to be going away now. What were your thoughts when you first got him, and are you surprised or you figured this is what you're going to get?
I was super, super happy we got him because where he came from. He came from the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Tampa Bay Rays, anytime the Tampa Bay Rays call for a player, you probably should hang up the phone because they know something that we all don't know. And when we got Travis Sarno, it just felt like it felt like kind of the glue that was, I don't know if it was missing, but it was the glue behind the plate and the glue of personality and the glue of what a catcher is. And I thought that was one of the most underrated moves we made during that offseason. And it's proved positive to that. And I honestly think after Brian Snicker retires, it's either Travis Darno as manager or Walt Weiss.
Ooh, ooh, I like
You
that.
mentioned Tampa Bay Rays. I feel like they have that secret, that secret recipe, that secret potion. Like today, if they said, oh, Randy Rosarina goes to Milwaukee for Jimmy Bob Smith, they know something that we don't know about Jimmy Bob Smith, and he's just going to outshine Randy Rosarina. Like they just, it time and time again. They may not be hitting on all cylinders like they have in recent years, but let's not forget they made postseason now, 5 years in a row in that division. So with that said, like with Atlanta, I know, like you said, May has kind of been a struggle for them, but you have all the confidence. Like, do you feel that they're going to still be that team in October, or do you feel like they're still going to be behind the 8 ball of Philadelphia?
I will say we have the pitching to do it this year. You got Max Fried, Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez has been a revelation, and even Charlie Morton. Now, can we avoid the injuries down the stretch to our starting pitching? Who knows? That's always an up in the air thing. And there's consistency in our rotation that we haven't seen in past years, but now our offense can't hit out of a wet paper bag right now. So, and you got the injuries to Ronald Acuna Jr., you got the injury to Spencer Strider, you've got so many things you can't control. I'm still confident because we're 9 games over 500, and if you look at the season as a whole and everything that's gone wrong, we should not be 9 games over 500, but somehow we are, and we're sticking there. So it's only June, and there's a lot of baseball to go. But do I feel as confident? I don't know, but I feel a lot more confident in our pitching right now than I have in years past.
The recent history of the Braves, at least in my opinion, is that they always kind of start slow, especially now in an environment where if the name of your team has vowels, you can get in the playoffs. I mean, there's no real advantage anymore to having that best record in the division, since you can just make the playoffs. I mean, you're gonna have to play some road games and this or that, but the Braves, in my opinion, always set themselves up for postseason play. They'll be there in the end.
Well, I really hope you guys are right, and I feel that. It's just this has probably been the most struggle we've had offensively, collectively as a unit, probably in the last 3 or 4 seasons.
And to echo your point, Darren. So looking, I'm going to get to my point here in just a second, but as you see there on the screen, you have the keep pounding for the Carolina Panthers, and one person in particular, one of the most well-known celebrities from North Carolina, is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and his motto is always, to be the man, you got to beat the man. The Atlanta Braves are still the man until somebody else beats them.
Great pull, my friend.
Yeah.
Great pull.
Yeah. So I think no matter what, and it really, at the end of the day, because of the second ball, it really doesn't matter who has home field, who gets in as the division leader. I just feel like Philadelphia might even be that team to take Atlanta all the way to towards the end there. I still feel there's some combustible elements. They're hitting on all cylinders, but there's a lot of combustible elements on Philadelphia, so that's where I would give the advantage to Atlanta right now, which is hard to say. But they're not really the Braves aren't really hated right now by the Mets. Maybe they were a few years ago. Right now, the Mets really just kind of hate ourselves in a way.
They're just right now. The Mets are a whiny team. They just whine.
So,
well, I speaking on the Mets, I guess from my perspective, I think that you guys did yourself a disservice by not trading Pete Alonso last year, because the Brewers were asking, and the Brewers, and I feel like that would have been a match made in heaven. And right now, Pete Alonso is your best hitter, best player, but what does he give other than power?
Yep.
That is gonna be he's gonna be
Yeah.
a viable trade candidate, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if there's as many suitors as there was last year.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So,
very interesting to see how that direction goes with that. But one kind of talking about, Alonso, with the Atlanta Braves, is one guy in particular I'd like to get both your thoughts on, who was kind of like a cast off in a way in terms of off the field antics and whatnot, but has just revitalized himself this year, and that's Marcell Ozuna. If you would mind talking a little bit about his impact, because he's really holding down the fort right now with
Uh,
the injuries, but.
I can tell you that that is a hot button topic when it comes to my lives or whatever the case may be. Not so much this year because he's basically carrying the offense. But credit where credit is due, because look, you have struggles, we're all human, whatever, but there's one thing I know about the Braves is if they're giving you multiple chances for something, then they definitely believe in you, because even though Alex Anthopoulos hates the word culture, the culture in the Braves clubhouse is paramount. And the two things that he got in trouble for, the domestic violence and the other off the field issues, aren't necessarily uh, culture inducing topics. So if they're giving him second and third chances, then they obviously saw something, and he's been the biggest leader for our clubhouse, to be honest, in these offensive struggles. Like, he talked to Michael Harris the second last year, and he was like, in his June struggles, he was like, you just need to start being the best center fielder we know you can be and complete player. And then he went on to be the best center fielder in the second half of the season. So yes, Marcell Ozuna is a hot rod of a topic, but if you can look at anything and say you can come back from anything, because I was yelling at my TV for Marcell Ozuna to get off my team last April. But the Braves know better than I do, and I appreciate that Marcell Ozuna is what he is now.
Yep. And so, Darren, I'd like to ask you this question, shifting gears to Matt Olson for a minute, because I feel like, I'm sure there are other ones, but I know name wise, and that maybe because Matt Olson was in Oakland at the time, but has there been a more even swap with who Atlanta went to the Dodgers versus getting Matt Olson? In my opinion, like, I know name value is a little bit scary as a Braves fan, but it feels like that was just as even as it can get. Like, I feel like they didn't lose a step there.
no, I mean, the guy's got a 234 batting average right now, which is low, but you know what? It's you mentioned Pete Alonso. It's Pete Alonso's average right now. He's got 9 home runs, 33 RBIs. He plays a very good defense. I think you hit it right on the head. He is a wonderful fill this person in kind of thing. And he does it what I call the Braves way. Shows up on time. There's nobody on the Braves that showboats to an excessive amount, And there's also nobody on the Braves who dogs it. I'm going to bring you back a couple of years. Cass, maybe you remember this. Do you remember when James McCann was on the Braves?
James
McCann-
McCann was never on the Braves.
Who was the catcher? Yeah, I thought he was. Who was the catcher?
Brian McCann.
Brian McCann. That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you. I get one demerit, but a half a demerit because I got the last name. Brian McCann. And remember when that knucklehead who played for the Brewers?
Carlos Gomez.
He did his forever trot. I could have shaved twice.
Yep.
And McCann stood there and said, no way. You don't do that. And he gave him the lip. That's the Braves way. That's the Braves way. Chipper Jones, that's the Braves way. I hate the Braves, but I respect the Braves. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference. You give me any Brave on the Mets, I'd be happy as heck. There's a lot of teams out there I have no respect for, a lot of them, and but the Braves, I hate them, but I respect the heck out of them. Thank you. McCann did that. When he did that, before then, I was always a Chipper Jones guy, right? Because he hated the Mets. He destroyed a lot of our dreams, and then named his kid Shea. I mean, come on. I mean, how great is that? But you remember, Cass? Do you remember when McCann did that? I mean, were you following back then? What was that like in the Atlanta circle? I mean, was it as widely received as it was at least up here in New York?
Yeah, it was. And I think that was actually like pre-Twitter or X or whatever you're calling it. But yeah, it went over very, very well. Just because you don't want to take crap, but the interesting part is Ronald Acuna Jr. I love him to death. But for some Braves fans, they think he showboats. He does blah 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 blah. But I don't think he's over flashy. He does what he does, and I would love to get your perspective as a Mets fan. Do you think it's
For me, with that, I think baseball needs more of those type of personalities. I'm not saying go over. I mean, like let's look at a Bryce Harper. If you look at career ejections right now of active players, he's I think in the high 30s, and the next closest is 9. So I'm not saying to that regard, but I think you need those kind of people. My only thing with Acuna, and it's not his fault, is the placement in the lineup. I would like to see him somewhere else than where he's at in the lineup. That's just me. Maybe out of the lineup when they're playing the Mets, but no. But I think, gosh, not a problem at all with that. I think he's the kind, like one thing we said on the show a few times over the these last couple months is baseball needs more identifiable names out there that people can recognize instead of holding on to I used to watch baseball back when it was this and this and this. Like if we see like your Paul Skeens with Pittsburgh and Jackson Holiday when he came up, that wasn't he wasn't quite ready, but we see some more of that, those names being promoted. That's to get baseball to that next level. And then and Darren, before you kind of touch on that, one thing I just want to give Atlanta some more shout for is the Tampa Bay Rays are always looked at that team that manages their roster the best. But I feel like right now you can almost say that what Atlanta did actually tops that because they pretty much locked in everyone like in that 24 to 27-year-old range. They locked them up long term, and that's something unfortunately you look at. Tampa does great things, but now Tyler Glasnow is sitting in Los Angeles. Why? Because they can't afford him, and so that's all the credit in the world to Atlanta for that, I would say.
I got to tell you a couple of things. Acuna, for example, more talented than the person I'm going to talk about, but is it really any difference than what Cespedes did with the Mets a couple of years ago, wearing all the canary yellow and that kind of stuff is good for baseball. And by the way, whether it's Cespedes, whether it's Acuna, this has been going on forever. The people who say, in my day, that didn't, no. Oscar Gamble, Mickey Rivers, Pete Vukovich, Pete Rose. These was just wild, flamboyant, Mark the Bird Fidrich, I mean, come on, the spaceman. I mean, that's why we love this sport. Again, there is not a Brave I wouldn't have on my team.
Yeah, no. And so one of the things we like to talk about too, Cass, on the show is actual ballparks, actual stadiums. Have you got an opportunity to visit the new ballpark, Truist Ballpark?
Truist Park is amazing. Truist Park, I've been a couple of times. We got lucky enough to have the fancy dancy whatever club thing, whatever, because my dad was able to get him through work. So yes, but Truist Park is one of the best ballparks in baseball. But that's really the only one that I've been to other than Turner Field I went to a couple times as well. Truist Park is way better in my opinion. And obviously I went to some in spring training. I went to the Pirates Park in Bradenton, the Yankee Park in Tampa, the Braves Park in Northport is awesome. Disney was fun, but I think they definitely upgraded. But I've only been to those two ballparks, major league wise.
So then maybe you can help me unpack, I use that term again, this a little bit, because I've been down to Atlanta a couple times. The ballpark is really, really nice. There's no butter, however. I'm amazed that you were able to get a new stadium because the stadium they played in wasn't that old. Walk me through what happened there. Because
From
now
what
that's being used for college baseball.
from what I understand, it was just the area of where Turner Field was. It wasn't the greatest in terms of like homeless unsafeness.
There was blight. There was some urban blight.
Yeah. So there's some unsafeness there, and they just that was the ultimate like nail in the coffin of Turner Field, not the field, not the facilities, just the area. They wanted to make it better and more safe and more all of that. From my perspective, since I don't live in Atlanta, that was just what I got from it. I could be totally wrong, but that's the main issue there, I believe. And then they turned, and basically where they are now, they turned the entire Truist Park in the Battery area. They've turned it into an entire experience. It's almost a mini Wrigleyville, so it is absolutely incredible.
Well, the views are beautiful. You know, you just when you're in the stadium and what you see in the outside, it's beautiful. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, Cass, if I may, ask a question. Play your role, Mike, for half a second. The Braves aren't listening, so shh, it's okay. What would you say is your biggest weakness right now?
Striking out too much. And just like an offensive, you see it where offensive goodness is contagious, and goodness is not a proper word, I know, but you get my point. But offensive struggles are contagious at this point right now. I think losing Ronald Acuna Jr., yes, I know he wasn't on his MVP insane level that he was last year, but I think losing Ronald, losing that spark plug at the top of the lineup, being able to get on base, being able to affect things in a different way, in many different ways, anytime he's in the batter's box, I think that is kind of put pressure on everybody. You got different lineups, and Austin Riley doesn't look like he's hitting very good at second. Like the lineup length isn't there. I think everybody's just trying to get 8 hits in one at bat instead of just taking it one time at a time, because we're making pitchers like Nick Pivetta. No disrespect, he's a great pitcher, but we made him look like Pedro Martinez yesterday, and he had a 5.55 ERA coming into that start since he came back from his injury. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I think we're all just trying to do way too much and striking out too much. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So, and we were talking about some parks. One stadium I only got to go once was the Wide World of Sports Complex, where the Braves had their spring training. And even though they have a new ballpark now, I haven't been to the new stadium, but I felt like they lost their identity a little bit. I think the reason, for those that may not know, I'll just give a quick 1-minute history session with Mike. But what unfortunately would happen here in Central Florida was I'll start with the Washington Nationals, is where it actually before that was the Dodgers, wound up going to Arizona. But then the Washington Nationals, it was about a 2-hour bus ride to the nearest city for the spring training games. And a lot of the regulars were complaining too much lag and stuff. And so they tried just sending some of the the younger talent. It just wound up that started it, and then so Washington moved, and then Houston was in Kissimmee, and then they moved, and then eventually Atlanta moved, and the Dodgers. There's so many teams in that area that had moved, and but what the staple of Orlando was going to a Braves game at Wide World Sports Complex. They had free parking. It was a little bit more of a pricey ticket, but it was a beautiful stadium. And even though they have a beautiful stadium where they're at now, some friends that have went, it doesn't quite feel like a Braves ballpark. It just kind of feels like a nice shiny new toy, from what I've heard. I haven't been to yet, so but I don't feel like that Truist is did a disservice to Turner Field. Like from what I've seen of it, I think it does look like a beautiful park, and it's interesting because if you ask people what are the parks that I don't hear that as one they want to see, but can't really name too many things wrong with it either. So I just found that interesting.
It's just because I think that's just because you think of Fenway Park, you think of Wrigley Field, you think of Dodger Stadium, you think of all of the historic things that is synonymous with baseball, and just because Truist Park isn't synonymous with baseball, it's become one of the best atmospheres in baseball. And you definitely should go and check it out because it's a different experience for sure. It's definitely more modern.
And besides the hot dog, what is the go-to stadium eat that you would
For
recommend?
me, nachos.
Yeah, the nachos.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes, like we said on the show before, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just it's funny though. I've actually, and Darren, I don't know about yourself, I've never had Cracker Jacks at a ballpark. Like that, surprising, but never has happened. I guess because there's always other things more greasy that I want at the time, but it's a staple. You sing the song. But
You know what?
so
Now that you're saying it, I don't think I have either.
yeah, it's ironic, but now peanuts is of course one thing. One of the things, because I know you've kind of covered the team more in the recent years, but so there's no wrong answer here. It's up for debate, and obviously some of the people you might not have even seen in your lifetime. One of the fun things we like to do on the show is a 4-person Mount Rushmore, and it could be, like I said, you're in your time really watching it, can be just names that you know of. So I'll kind of start with that, and for me, of course, this one was pretty easy for me, but it's subjective, of course. I have Hank Aaron, of course. I have Greg Maddux. I have Chipper Jones, and I have Tom Glavine. So I guess go to you, Darren, next, if you had to think about it for a second.
What do you think? What do you think, Yes?
Hank Aaron, Chipper Jones, John Smoltz, Greg Maddux. But if you're going in a more my era, definitely Chipper Jones still. Hank Aaron still definitely, but more modern guys. I think you can honestly put Ronald Acuna Jr. on the modern Atlanta Braves Mount Rushmore, and I can't think of it. And I think you could go with any of the big, and I think you could put Bobby Cox on there as well.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Mine is going to be a little weird. I'll do mine since 1990, and I'll put Acuna on there because he's just fun to watch. Greg Maddux, Chipper Jones, and ready kids, Javi Lopez.
But
Okay.
you guys do know you have an Acuna in your
Yes.
minor league system, so you got to get the Acuna right. It's Acuna.
I'm from Brooklyn, lived in California, and now living near Boston. I'll never get it. I'll try. There'll be that real effort, but
Sorry, as long as you put in the effort, but the people are gonna get you for that one.
Oh, they will. They already do.
Leangelo, or I don't know his Leangelo Acuna shows up for you guys.
Yeah, didn't we draft him last year or?
Nope, you traded for him in the Justin Verlander deal.
That's right. We dumped Verlander. We dumped that money. We ate a lot of it.
Yeah, and isn't it's still, hate to bash the Mets. Maybe that's why I don't have as many of my Mets friends that always tune in because I bash them a little bit. But you have to, call them out when they need to. But there's
Oh,
more money
absolutely.
in contracts to people that are not on this roster. I
Oh,
think if you combine three payrolls of I think it's like Tampa Bay, Oakland, and one other team combined, their payroll this year is less than what we're paying for people that aren't even on the team. That's just
Yeah.
I still am angry with the Mets, and I love my Mets, you know that. But I'm still angry. They were 6 games out of a wild card spot last year, and they just trashed the season in mid-July.
yeah.
That you actually made the right choice though.
Did we?
Yes.
Why?
Why?
Mhm.
Because you weren't going anywhere.
Who
You think
knows?
it, no, not the way you guys were trending.
Oh, no doubt.
Look at no, I'm just in a comparison sense. Look at what the Angels they held on to Shohei Ohtani, got absolutely nothing, and they were in the same spot you guys were. I'm telling you, you guys made the right choice.
That is interesting. Also, Mike, you don't know this. Cass, you definitely don't know this. But I did a podcast on the other show I have yesterday talking about the Mets. And here's how I solved the Ventos situation. And Beatty, you ready? You ready for this, Mike? I trade Alonso now, get maximum pull for him that you can, and you put Ventos to first base.
Um,
And Cash, once Mike's done after his draw just dropped, I'll see what you think.
yeah. I feel like it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen. Like I think they're going to. It wouldn't surprise me if it's like that 4 o'clock hour on the deadline day. But I do see, unless something changes. I know they just swept Washington, but there's still 52 games out of the wild card right now. So
4 games. There are only 4 games out of wild card.
I know, yeah. It feels like so much further, but yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, because we're
Um,
terrible.
but I feel like, yeah, I think unfortunately, you asked me at the beginning of the season, I said no, we hold on to him to the end, but um, there's just too much at risk with that. If the other guys on the team were your Martes, your McNeils, guys like that were producing consistently, then I would say okay, it's maybe worth the risk. But it's a whole there's too many people that are not consistent right now. So um, but yeah, that's my take. I don't hate it. I don't know, Beatty's gonna, maybe keep him down there for an entire month, really get because he didn't have too many at bats down there to begin with. So like to see him down there for a little bit. Let Mark have more of an opportunity for a period of time and see what happens. But so what was I gonna say? Oh, so with one of the things, so I'm gonna be pro Matt for a second, but I'm getting into Atlanta here. So I think anyone can say whatever you feel about the New York Mets, the commentating for the New York Mets is as good as it can be, in my personal opinion. I know sometimes, Hernandez a little hates on the Phillies a little bit too much and whatever, but honest opinion, I'll start with you, Darren, on Atlanta in terms of their from what you've heard of their commentators. I don't know if you've heard too much of them. I have, even though I'll watch the Mets broadcast if they're playing Atlanta. I've heard a lot, and I'm kind of like 50-50 on them. What's your
So
thoughts?
here's where I go. There's the New York Mets, guys, and just for my opinion, are number one. San Francisco Giants are number two. I put in terms of commentators, I put the Braves guys on the top five. They're very good. I enjoy them. I enjoy them.
Yep.
How about you
I
guys?
I completely agree. Um, and it's had a makeover over the last 4 or 5 years, and I love the Chip Carey legacy and all of that stuff. But I think it was time. It was time to get more modern, more modern in the game of baseball, given the analytics, given everything. And it felt like Chip Carey at the end of his tenure got way too excited when the other team did something well in our games. So that was one of the things where I was like, okay, I love the Chip Carey legacy and the legacy, as a whole, but I was really ready for something new. And Brandon Gaudin and CJ Nikowski and Jeff Rancourt and all the guys that we've used do a fantastic job of melding frustrations, fun, movie references.
That's the piece. That's like social media. That's they
Yeah.
do so well. Very good. That's
Yeah.
exactly good.
Because
That's
unfortunately they've gotten some heat for being too much for their own team, but like, is that really a bad
Stop.
thing? No, it's
No.
not. Like, you know,
No.
you have some clubs where you don't know the difference. You can't tell the difference between an intentional walk, a ground roll and double, and a walk off 3-run home run. It sounds exactly the same. There's no energy there with some of the clubs. And if you support your team where you're not disrespecting the others,
Yeah.
that's there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
I'll tell you this, Francoeur in the booth, because we had him in New York for a while too. He would do some backup stuff when he first started. He's tremendous.
Oh.
For me anyway.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
tremendous. He just says it like it is, you know?
And there's so many names too. You know, I know maybe a little before your time, but just you know, I think the Braves, and I just think I do like your Lopez pick. You know, like we recently had San Diego Padres podcast when we talked about Benito Santiago. But like for me, I think Atlanta, and I just my brain just goes to like Jeff Blauser and Mark Lemke and Terry Pendleton and just those guys as well. It's been 25 years removed, but just so many. It feels like they were just blessed for so many years with so much talent. So, but so I guess to as we kind of wrap things up here, I'd ask you both this question. So we're sitting there, postseason has begun, and where is this team, and how far do they go this year?
Cass, you're up.
It depends on, this is gonna probably be a dumb answer, but it depends on what if anything we can do at the trade deadline to create a spark circa 2021. Not saying it's gonna be the same, but I feel like there has to be a spark of some sorts for the offense. And for just to feel like a punch. We just needed some sort of punch because Ronald Acuna Jr. being out of the lineup, whether he was struggling or not, that punch is not necessarily there right now. So I think it definitely depends on the trade deadline we have and whatever creativeness we try to do before that to keep ourselves afloat. But I will say, we'll probably, I want to say wild card, and we will win the wild card series, and it'll probably be a dogfight between us and the Phillies. But that's what I'm gonna say is that's at best 7-game loss to the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. At worst, we lose in the first wild card.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to, you know, what for the Braves' success to get past the Phillies. It's going to come down to who pitches Game 4 and how the bullpen performs. And of course, the lineup's got to come together. But I mean, you're taking Sale and you're taking Max, and you're taking what's his name? You're taking those three guys. You're not going to lose many games unless the bullpen or the lineup doesn't come through. So, you know, that it almost is. It's a whole. That's why it's a whole new ball game, because you may look and say this team may be built a little bit stronger, but you forget in those especially the shorter series in the playoffs, that those having that 1, 2, and 3 punch it makes it tough for other teams.
I do wish that every series after the 3-game wild card series was a 7-game series. I just
Me
do.
too.
But that's just an opinion. Not that we would have beat the Phillies last year in a 7-game series because we couldn't hit a beach ball if we tried. But I'm just saying in general, that's always been my feeling. I don't like the 5-game series, even when we win them.
Yeah.
I think baseball is meant for a 7-game series. For me, it's one of those numbers, baseball, in my opinion, is a game of attrition, much like hockey is a game of attrition. And that 7 games, see, you can't fool anybody 7 games. If you go that long, the better team usually is the one that wins. There are outliers, bad calls, and this and that, but I think that's what happens. So
I do want to ask you,
go
Darren.
ahead.
I'm sorry, you mentioned hockey, and we're tying this up. But hockey, sometimes I think they have it right in terms of the 7-game series. You have the two are 2-2-1-1-1, correct? That's how that goes.
Yep.
In most other leagues, it's 2-3-2. If in a 7-game series, but you wonder, like, ideally, you don't like the fact that the home team goes 1-1 and now they have the advantage and they have to go play 3 games on the road. But I understand that they're professionals and stuff, but like, let's just say you have an East Coast, West Coast matchup, having them travel back and forth so much can also be a deterrent. So are you happy with the 2-3-2 in baseball, or would you wish they would take that hockey approach and kind of divide that up a little bit more?
That's a great question. I go back and forth on that, but I feel the fairest thing is 2-2-1-1-1. Because, there's millions of dollars out there. They get more than enough rest. They're not playing overnight. Because here's the truth. A bad bounce, a bad call, right? So you have the first 2 games at home. A bad bounce, bad call, whatever the case may be. Now you got to play 3 on the road? That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. But it's a different mindset when you go and say, hey, all I gotta do is split here, and I got a 3-game series.
Yep.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cass?
I kind of go back and forth on it too, but I don't really hate either one, but I see the 2-2-1-1-1 as probably more fair on both sides. But also, if you take care of business at home, like on the 2-3, like, you're still guaranteed the most important games at home. So
True.
I don't know. It's just I don't really think about it too much.
I think at the end of the day, for me, it's because you bring up a good point. If you get the job done, I just, there's something about getting that clinching final game, whether it's game 5, 6, 7 at home, and the 2-2-1-1-1 gives that better opportunity. Because if, let's say that you are the home team, you get those first 2 wins, but I don't know. It's not going to change. But yeah, if you're asking me right now, 2-2-1-1-1 it would be the way to go. But I'm not losing sleep over it. So. But thank you guys so much. Atlanta Braves, fans, I think there's not too much. Just hang on a little bit longer. I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. Do expect them to be there against Philadelphia in the end. See what happens from there. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Cass. And thank you once again to National Tax Solutions, Chris Bennett. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you around the ballpark.